They found him alone, slumped in his favorite chair. No sign of struggle, no call for help, just utter quiet. The television screen still lit up, his dressing gown still undone, and a heavy silence filled the room. The kind of stillness that only comes after something irreversible has happened. The official report said natural causes, but those of us who understand the telltale signs knew better. It was a silent hormonal decline, the gradual erosion of a man's strength, not from illness, but from self-neglect. And sadly, he's not the only one. Every year, countless older men go through the same loss of vigor, the same decline in sexual health, the same clouding of their emotional state, all while thinking they're doing what's right by giving up something they believe they no longer need. For years, we've taught men to avoid self-pleasure, saying it's childish, shameful, unnecessary. But after 60, holding on to that belief can quietly take everything from you. Because here's a truth that's rarely spoken aloud. When you stop pleasuring yourself as you get older, your body doesn't just stay the same. It starts to break down. Your prostate becomes sluggish. Your testosterone levels plummet. Your emotional well-being suffers. And by the time you notice these changes, you're already falling behind. I'm Dr. Evelyn Blake, and I've spent decades helping men like you reclaim their vitality, their confidence, and their zest for life. I've sat down with farmers, veterans, teachers, and grandfathers who all believed they were doing the right thing by abstaining. And I've seen the quiet regret in their eyes when the consequences finally caught up with them. Because most of them never realized that those habits they learned so long ago, those habits society told them were wrong, are now working against them in the most important years of their lives. But there is hope. In this video, I'm going to explain the 4 real health problems that happen when you stop pleasuring yourself in later life, and more importantly, how to avoid them before it's too late. These are simple, practical, medically sound solutions that many of my patients have used to protect their sexual health, boost their energy levels, and avoid common problems that most men simply think are a part of getting older. And be sure to stay until the end, because the last problem I'll share is one that even most doctors don't discuss. Yet, it's also the one that could silently triple your risk of prostate issues if you don't address it. If you want to protect your body, your confidence, and your independence as you age, you'll want to listen carefully. And if you're watching now, type 1 in the comments if you're with me, or 0 if you have doubts. I welcome both, because this is a conversation older men deserve to have openly and with honest answers. So, let's start with the first and perhaps most dangerously ignored consequence of giving up self-pleasure in old age. I've seen it happen so many times. A man in his late 60s or early 70s comes to my office feeling confused and frustrated. He tells me he hasn't had a natural erection in months. Sometimes it's been over a year. And what bothers him most isn't the lack of performance. It's how suddenly it happened. One day he felt like himself, and the next something inside just stopped working. It surprises most men. Why? Because no one ever told them that stopping sexual activity could cause their sexual ability to fade away like a muscle that's not being used. Let me be very clear. Your penis isn't just for show. It's a working organ that needs regular blood flow to stay healthy. When you go for long periods without any stimulation, especially after 60, something concerning starts to happen. Blood flow slows down. Oxygen supply decreases. The tissues begin to stiffen. Not in a good way, but in a way that leads to tissue damage, nerve damage, and permanent loss of erectile function. This isn't just a theory. It's basic biology. Think about it this way. If you stopped moving your legs completely for 6 months, what would happen? You'd lose muscle, coordination, flexibility. You might even forget how to walk. The same thing happens to the penis. After a certain age, it doesn't just stay ready. It starts to shut down when it's not used. And the worst thing is, this decline doesn't come with a clear warning. It's quiet, and it creeps up on you. You don't notice it until it's too late. One day you realize your morning erections are gone. Then even physical touch or fantasies don't work. Eventually, even with medication, the body doesn't respond like it used to because the foundation has already weakened. I've had men sit across from me, their eyes filled with tears, asking if they can get it back. Some do, with intense therapy, lifestyle changes, and medical help, but others waited too long. They thought stopping self-pleasure was harmless, that it was a sign of self-control. But actually, it was the quiet start of their sexual decline. And let me be clear, this isn't about being obsessed with sex. It's about protecting a vital part of your circulation, your hormone balance, and your sense of being a man. Maintaining occasional solo activity, even just once or twice a week, can keep the blood flowing, keep the nerves active, and remind your body that this function is still important. The truth is, if you don't use it, you lose it. And when you're older, that loss can be permanent. I've seen it deeply affect men, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because it affects their self-esteem, their relationships, their sense of self. And what's most sad is that it could have been avoided. Completely avoided. All it needed was consistency. Not overdoing it, but paying attention to your body's needs. Now, while most men worry about losing their erections, what they don't realize is that's just the beginning. Because the next consequence of stopping self-pleasure affects something even deeper, your hormones. And once they start to decline, the effects spread far beyond the bedroom. Let me explain exactly how it usually begins, and it's very subtle. A man stops feeling like himself, but he can't really explain why. He's not as eager to get out of bed in the morning. He skips his walks. His appetite changes. His mood becomes dull. He feels more tired during the day, more easily irritated, more withdrawn, and deep down he senses something important is slipping away, but he can't quite figure out what it is. In my practice, I've seen men blame it on aging, on stress, on not sleeping well. But when we look deeper, we often find the same root cause. Their testosterone levels have dropped, not just naturally with age, but faster because they've stopped sexual stimulation completely. And here's something most people never hear. Pleasuring yourself is one of the few natural ways older men can encourage their bodies to produce testosterone. It's not about sex or fantasies. It's about biology. When you experience regular arousal and release, your brain sends signals that help regulate your hormone balance. Dopamine levels rise, the hypothalamus is activated, and your testicles, even in your 60s or 70s, get the message to keep producing testosterone. But when you stop that process entirely, when you go weeks or months with no sexual activity at all, the message your body receives is the opposite. It thinks intimacy is no longer a priority. So, it reduces hormone production. And once that cycle starts, it can be difficult to reverse. Men with low testosterone don't just feel tired. They start to lose their sense of self. They can't focus. They lose interest in the things that once made them feel good. Their muscles start to weaken. Their bones become more fragile. They become more likely to feel depressed. And perhaps most dangerously of all, their risk of heart problems increases, putting them in greater danger of heart attacks and strokes. I've seen men who were once full of life become shadows of themselves in just a few years. Not because they were sick, but because no one ever told them how important healthy, regular sexual stimulation is for maintaining hormone balance. One patient of mine, a retired firefighter, told me that after his hormone levels dropped, he started to feel like he didn't matter anymore. His words still stay with me. He said, "Doc, I don't even recognize the man in the mirror." And I'll never forget the look in his eyes. It wasn't about vanity. It was about grief. And this didn't have to happen. With a little knowledge and a simple habit he thought was wrong, he could have protected not just his hormones, but his happiness, his energy, his drive. Because here's the hard truth. Once your testosterone levels crash in old age, it can take years of treatment and a lot of money to get them back, if it's even possible. But by continuing to engage in your own intimacy in a healthy way, you can keep your levels stable for longer than you think. And while hormones are often invisible, the next consequence is something every man feels in a much more physical, sometimes painful way. A condition that develops quietly deep inside the body until it starts to interfere with your daily life. And most men don't even realize it's connected to one simple thing they're no longer doing. Let me explain. There's a type of discomfort older men don't often talk about. A heavy, dull ache deep in the pelvis, a strange pressure after sitting for too long, or the constant urge to urinate even when your bladder isn't full. It doesn't come on suddenly like a heart attack. It develops slowly, quietly, until it starts to disrupt your daily life. And by the time most men mention it to their doctor, they've already been living with it for months, sometimes years. What's shocking is how often this silent suffering can be traced back to one overlooked cause: prostate congestion caused by not ejaculating. Your prostate isn't just a passive organ in the male body. It's an active gland that produces and stores seminal fluid. That fluid is supposed to move. It's supposed to be released. When you stop pleasuring yourself or having sex completely, especially as you get older, that fluid sits there. And when it sits, it thickens. Pressure builds. Inflammation develops. That's when you start to notice changes. Slower urine flow, discomfort in your lower back, that constant urge to go that wakes you up in the middle of the night. As a urologist, I can't tell you how many older patients come in thinking they have a bladder problem, only to find out that what they're dealing with is an irritated, inflamed prostate. In many cases, the solution isn't medication. It's movement. It's the body's natural cleansing process through regular ejaculation. And when that process is ignored for too long, the consequences can be serious. Some men develop chronic prostatitis, a painful, long-term inflammation that's difficult to treat and even harder to live with. Others find themselves needing invasive procedures just to feel normal again. And beyond the physical discomfort, there's another danger that most men never hear about. Research, including a well-known Harvard study, has shown that regular ejaculation may help lower the risk of prostate cancer. The idea is simple. When the prostate is regularly emptied, it reduces the buildup of potentially harmful substances. But when that fluid is allowed to sit there for months, it may increase inflammation and long-term risk. One man I treated had gone almost 2 years without any sexual activity. He didn't feel the need, he told me. He thought that part of his life was over. But when his PSA levels spiked and we ran more tests, we found significant congestion. His prostate was swollen and irritated, and he was facing biopsy discussions that could have been avoided with something as simple and natural as maintaining occasional release. This isn't about encouraging lust or overindulgence. It's about preventing suffering. It's about understanding that the male body doesn't suddenly stop needing care after 60. If anything, it needs more attention, more respect. The prostate is one of the most vulnerable organs in older men. And when neglected, the damage isn't just uncomfortable, it can be life-changing. But while a congested prostate might cause pain, irritation, and long nights running to the bathroom, the final consequence goes even deeper. It strikes at the heart of how a man feels about himself. And for many, it's the one they never see coming until it's already taken hold. Let me explain what I mean. It's the quietest decline of all and often the most devastating. It doesn't show up on blood tests. It's not something you can easily measure, but you feel it deep down. A slow fading of the spark you once had. A creeping sense of disconnection. A distance from yourself that you can't quite explain. It happens gradually. You stop pleasuring yourself because you think you don't need to anymore. You tell yourself it's age or a lack of interest or simply the way life is when you're not in a relationship. But over time, that decision doesn't just affect your body. It reaches into your mind, your emotions, your very sense of being alive. I've spoken with men who've said they feel empty inside, not because of illness or pain, but because they've gone months, sometimes years, without any form of release, without any intimacy, even with themselves. And slowly, they begin to feel invisible, unwanted, unnecessary. They don't talk about it, of course. Most older men were never taught how, but it shows in the way they walk, in the way they avoid looking in the mirror, in the way their voices become quieter when you ask how they're doing. This isn't about sex. This is about vitality, about the subtle but powerful connection between your physical body and your emotional well-being. When you give up self-pleasure completely, you cut off one of the last remaining paths to joy, to self-recognition, to feeling human. And for men over 60, that's not just a loss, that's a wound. Because arousal, pleasure, and release aren't just for young people. They're part of what keeps your brain active, your hormones balanced, your emotions healthy. Neurologically, the chemicals released when you pleasure yourself, dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, are essential for regulating mood, reducing anxiety, and promoting emotional stability. Without them, men are more likely to experience depression, loneliness, and even cognitive decline. I've seen men who were once confident and sociable slowly become isolated, withdrawn, and apathetic. Not because their lives changed dramatically, but because they stopped connecting with a part of themselves that once made them feel alive. And here's what makes this so dangerous. Many men don't realize this connection exists. They never connect the emotional numbness to the decision they made months ago to stop engaging in intimacy. By the time they feel the effects, the damage has already begun. And reversing it requires more than just hormone therapy or a new routine. It takes rebuilding the relationship with yourself, remembering that even in old age, your body still wants to feel, to express, to connect. This is the consequence that breaks my heart the most because it's the one that steals a man's dignity without him even realizing it. It takes away the quiet confidence he used to have, the warmth he used to offer, and leaves behind a shell he no longer recognizes. But here's the truth I want every man to hear. It's never too late to reconnect with yourself. Never too late to reawaken the energy you thought was gone. And in the final part of this video, I'll show you exactly how. The simple, science-backed steps you can take today to regain what so many older men have lost and what you still have the power to protect. Let's finish this together. There's a belief that many older men have that intimacy, pleasure, and desire are things you outgrow. That after a certain age, your body is supposed to become quiet. That it's honorable, maybe even admirable to give up that part of yourself. But after more than 30 years as a doctor working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I can tell you that belief is costing far too many men their health, their happiness, and their sense of self. You've heard today how stopping pleasuring yourself can lead to the slow breakdown of your sexual function, a dangerous drop in your hormone levels, the swelling and inflammation of your prostate, and a silent emotional numbness that eats away at your spirit day by day. These aren't small changes. These are life-altering shifts that happen not because of aging, but because of neglect. But the good news is, it doesn't have to be this way. Your body still remembers how to feel. Your mind still wants connection, and your health still depends on you honoring every part of yourself, even the parts no one else sees. This isn't about lust. It's about life. It's about protecting what makes you feel strong, whole, and human. You don't need to feel ashamed for choosing health over silence. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to take it seriously. Take it personally, because it is personal. And if you're ready to take back control of this part of your life, I'm here to support you. You're not alone, and you're not finished yet. If this message touched something inside you, even just a little, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here, that you still care, that you're still fighting for your health. And if it didn't, that's okay, too. Type 0 and tell me what you need. Either way, your voice is important, and you're not alone.